The conference over to Mr. Dexter Stark.
Hello and welcome to the Workload Automation Distributed Global User Community Webcast. And we're off. I'm going to start off with announcing the raffle and contest winners. Then I'm going to turn it over to Peter Kazmir, who's going to give us an update on workload automation solutions. Then I'm going to turn it over to Umair, who's going to give us his personal recap of CA World 2013. Then we have two client speakers for this webcast. First, we're going to start with Asim Kamal, who's going to be presenting operational support in a dynamic environment. And then we're going to turn it over to Michael O'Neill, who will be presenting automating agent client deployment. And the way we're going to handle Q&A, question and answers, is after each client presentation, we're going to open it up for Q&A just pertaining to their presentation, and then at the very end, we're going to open it up for all questions, including Peter and Omar, the Workload Automation Solutions in CA World 2013. We're doing this in the interest of time so that our clients' speakers have the most time. Let me turn the slides. Our winner from January is Myron Jenkins. Congratulations. They won the $100 Amazon gift certificate. We're going to have another raffle of everyone that's in attendance is eligible as long as you're a member of this global user community. If you're not, you can go out and sign up. We're not going to do the drawing probably until tomorrow when we get the attendee list back from WebEx. Now, we had a contest before CA World, and what it was is members were given the opportunity to submit entries, and what their entries were suggestions for future webcasts for presentations, and if they could give the presentation, all the better. We actually had 4 winners, and each of them saved their company $1,600 on registrations to CA World. You'll notice the first 2 names right away because they are our guest speakers this webcast, and they're going to be presenting their award-winning presentations during this webcast. Now, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Peter. Peter?
Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm just going to spend a few minutes just walking through what's going on with the workload automation solution. A very, very brief recap of what we did at CA World. I think Umair is going to go into more detail. What our strategy and focus is on right now and for the next several months, and what releases are coming down the pike. So, first of all, just a couple slides of quick recap. For those of you who didn't see this at CA World, CA is continuing to see customers moving up the maturity levels from job scheduling to job management to workload automation to dynamic service delivery. And our focus is going to be to continue to support that migration from just the simple job scheduling that's distributed and flexible, the static and so on, and moving up the line to workload automation, which is very event-driven, dynamic, integrated, and so on. And now we're even seeing a newer maturity level that we're calling dynamic service delivery. And I think some other folks have come up with other cool names for it. But this is more about integrating workload better with the rest of your environment, making it very cross-enterprise, cross-platform, integrating it with tools, making it a very good user experience, a very good role-based experience, having proactive and advanced analytics, SLA management, business service orchestration. We'll talk about that, I think, on the next slide. So we're going to continue to move up the path here. We're not leaving anybody behind. We still support everything all the way down the page here, but we want to continue to expand our offerings, features and functionality so that customers like you will be able to take advantage of those things and realize even more value from those different levels. One of the things that we shared at CA World was the results of our Tech Validate poll from early this year. And one of the questions that we asked was, of our customers, what are their top priorities around workload management? And you'll see the top 3 things here. certainly improving the SLA management, and even the third, it's broken out in analytics is very key. Expanding workload usage across the organization and integration with process automation and other tools as well. As we look at what our priorities are going to be going forward, I think you may have seen this before, the infamous cake layer slide. So this is sort of an architecture and sort of our focus plan. How are we going to go forward? So from a dynamic service delivery standpoint, we need all of these features and functionality. And I'll start at the bottom because agents really are the foundation of everything. So, you know, you run your jobs through the system agent, the remote agent, UJMA agent, but now there's more opportunities to integrate and expand the footprint of workload across your enterprise with all of the application agents. Of course, we've always had SAP, Oracle, and PeopleSoft, but now we're rolling out even newer ones like Microsoft SQL Server Agent, like Informatica, and so on. And we're going to continue to expand our stable of agents so that you can better integrate workload automation with all of the systems and applications that you have in your enterprise. On top of that, we recognize the fact that having a large number of agents, even having a small number of agents in some situations, is difficult to manage. You don't know necessarily, depending on your environment, what's been installed on what plugins are being used, if they're all configured appropriately, and so on. Deploying patches is a pain, so on. So one thing that we're going to be focusing on is something called centralized agent management, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Of course, we still support all of the engines that we support. Now, none of this is a distributed meeting, so we're mostly focused on AutoSys and G-Series, but I know some of you also have CA7 or ESP, and so we're going to be rolling out these features and functions in common components that all of the engines can use consistently. So you'll see centralized agent management is available to anybody on any of the engines, and not just on AutoSys, for example. Business service orchestration, again, this is really key. We want to make sure that the engines can be integrated with other tools. We want to make sure we have a robust web services interface across all 4 engines. That will help us integrate with things like process automation that got mentioned, with help desk systems, with things like XMatters, for example. So that's key going forward. And we'll also be using it to interface with the other common components we're talking about here. Of course, we're talking about lifecycle management tools, self-service tools, and of course, integrations across other things in the environment as well. So that's a big key of this. Cloud and SaaS are part of this row as well, this focus area. The next focus area up is analytics and SLA management. Of course, our flagship product here is iDash. iDash is going to continue to be expanded both to support all 4 engines in addition to just AutoSys, but also to add a number of new features and functionality, and to support the chorus discipline that we'll talk about in just a minute. From a UI perspective, we have a plan to really overhaul what we're doing from a UI perspective, and I'll talk about that in a little bit later slide. And the chorus workload discipline really builds upon everything below it here. For those of you not familiar with chorus, it started as a mainframe product, and it's expanding into the distributed space now as well. And workload automation is going to have what we call a discipline, a workload automation user interface that's part of chorus. Excuse me. And the chorus, where chorus really gives you the most value is that it brings together disciplines from multiple product lines like storage, database management, other things. It puts them into one user interface. So, and integrates them in ways that you really couldn't do it when they are separate point products. So, for example, with workload automation, you could say, for example, if we have the capacity management discipline, Hyperformix, or we have storage management, you can get a much better picture of what's going on from an analytical standpoint, from an SLA management standpoint, from a debugging standpoint. When jobs fail, you'll see that, through the storage discipline, well, maybe we ran out of disk space. Through the capacity management discipline, maybe the CPU is being pegged. So we'll be able to bring all these things together in one place, in one user interface that's highly usable and intuitive, rather than having to switch back and forth between different point solutions, even if they're integrated together. All of these things together, put together, is what we call dynamic service delivery. So you'll be hearing more and more about this as we continue to go forward. So in addition to kind of evolving our focus areas for workload delivery, we're also evolving how we're delivering workload automation. First of all, I think you've all heard this many times already today, but we're going to be, and we're already in the progress of converting all of our teams to Agile teams. So as part of that, we're rebalancing our staffing. So you'll be getting new faces in new places. We have a new sustaining engineering management, the product management team, in addition to being reorganized a little bit, has grown significantly. Where before we had 2 or 3 people working on our product management team, we now have, I believe, 15. And so what we've done is we split the product management role into 2 pieces. We have the product managers, like myself, like Mark Warren, and Parag. I think many of you are familiar with Parag, who are in charge of the big picture, who are responsible for working with our customers, who are responsible for guiding the overall priorities for our teams and so on. But we also have product owners, and if you're familiar with Scrum, they have the responsibilities of the Scrum product owners in terms of managing the individual user story backlog for projects and products, guiding the day-to-day prioritization and answering questions for the R&D teams and so on. So sort of inwardly focused, although the product owners will certainly be involved with customers as well. We want the product owners and the product managers to be of one mind and one vision. And so there are still a few product managers, but there are multiple product owners now. So we have product owners practically for every project and team, so they can guide those things. So that's one thing you'll see. We're moving some people around. I think some people you might have been familiar with as architects or developers before. Some of those are now product owners. For example, Dan Shannon is now one of the product owners. So you'll be seeing some of these people in new roles. We'll be implementing Scrum, and really the focus of Scrum, if you're not familiar with it, is on 2 things. One is on small incremental pieces of work that can be easily visible what's going on. Are we making progress rather than a huge monolithic schedule that you can't tell where you are, if we're on track, that kind of things. The other aspect, the other main aspect of Scrum is customer interaction, customer validation. So customers are heavily involved with each one of those increments. You get to review what we've done, give us your feedback, tell us if we're doing the right thing, if we need to change our plan, if our priorities are wrong. Also involved from a validation standpoint to help us define the requirements ahead of time, help us prioritize those requirements ahead of time. Another key aspect of Scrum as we're implementing it is the zero defect policy. So the way that Scrum works is that in each one of those little increments called sprints, we're going to be implementing some pieces of functionality, and the sprints are usually 2 to 4 weeks long, so not huge chunks, little chunks. And those pieces of functionality are not considered complete. In other words, we don't get credit for them. We can't demonstrate them to customers unless we've implemented them, tested them, and fully documented them by the end of that increment. So every 2 or 4 weeks, everything for that new piece of functionality has been updated, tested, and is ready to go out to a customer. So from a defect perspective, that means that we've tested it, but also if we have discovered any defects while we were testing it, those defects have been resolved or otherwise closed. Otherwise, we can't get credit and we can't ship that piece of functionality. So, in the past, I think, large companies, Microsoft is a good example people like to use. There's always a big backlog of lower priority defects, maybe fit and finish type things that aren't really critical. that don't get resolved before GA, we're not going to be doing that going forward on these projects. All the defects that we find have to be resolved or closed. So they will not be shipping with known defects going forward. Now, obviously, we have a backlog of issues that are still open from the older projects, and we have projects in place now to go back and fix all of those issues. Obviously, we can't do this within the 2 full-week time frame if we have good automated test suites rather than manual test suites, and we're also doing a lot of implementation there on test automation. So there's going to be an initial lack of velocity as we're focusing on those things rather than focusing on delivering new innovation. But the resulting ability to move fast and focus on specific things rather than dealing with a lot of interruptions and escalations will pay off big time in the long run. You're going to see a lot of work there. I mentioned customer validation several times. There's going to be opportunities for customer involvement in every aspect of every project and product. One thing that we're going to be doing, and you'll hear more about this soon, is we're going to be implementing something called Idea Vision, or I think maybe it has a new name, Clarity Ideation, which is going to be part of the online global user communities. And that's going to be your primary path to submit enhancement requests once it's rolled out and we've gone through a transition phase. Rather than calling support and entering a star issue, we'll be going through Idea Vision for enhancement requests. And what Idea Vision does basically is it lets you socialize enhancement requests. So not only will you relay to us your request, but you'll also share that, and you can do it anonymously with all of your peer customers, and they can vote on that idea and or discuss it, and they can vote on it up or down. So instead of reviewing the star queue once every month, we're going to be reviewing the idea queue once every month. And we'll be reviewing the top things in the queue. So if something gets a lot of votes, to us, what that's telling us is that there's a lot of support for it across the customer base. And so we really should pay attention to it. So we're going to be moving to that model to get some built-in customer validation to the value of a specific enhancement request. And also, we've made an investment in hiring user experience engineers, and we're going to be using these folks to help us not only design the new things that we're going to be implementing like Horus, but also to design enhancements and updates to our existing functionality. And so you're going to be hearing from us some requests to have the user experience person maybe have a meeting with you on the phone, or even better, come out in person, talk to you about how you use the products today, maybe even watch you use them, talk about what you'd like to see in the future, what would help you get your job done better, faster, more efficiently. So we're going to have a big focus on user experience going forward. And not just on graphical user interfaces too, I should point this out. This covers every touch point with the user. So installation, patching, configuration, management, I mean all of these different aspects that users have to deal with. You know, job definition even. If there's something that we need to do to make things better, then that's what the user experience person is going to help us do. Now don't panic, because I don't mean to say that we're going to go back and change everything we've got. You know, we're not changing Jill. We're not changing the command line flags. That's kind of not where I'm going there. But we do want to make sure that where it makes sense, we give you the best user experience that we can. But we're going to be very focused on our priorities. So I mentioned, you know, I showed you the cake layer slide a minute ago. We're really going to be focused on the agents and agent management, the integrated management user experience, or the UIs basically of Chorus, and analytics and SLA management. That's going to be our 3 focus areas for the next while. And so we're going to be very focused on doing those things. So it doesn't mean we're not going to work on engines, because a lot of these things will require engine updates, and we still have other enhancements coming down the line and so on. But we're going to be very focused on these things. And we're going to be organizing enhancement requests and so on to align with these as well. So if there are a number of enhancement requests coming in, excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cough. And if we're we've got enhancement requests coming in that aren't really going to drive these priorities, and we're going to have to really question whether we want to work on them now or work on them after we've really addressed these priorities. So what's coming up next? In the immediate future, in the next few months here, starting with the next couple of weeks, we have the Agent Service Pack 2. And I didn't specify which agent because this is primarily targeted at the system agent, but also targeted at a number of the other agents as well. This is coming out at the end of this month. In fact, I think we're having our sprint review, our last sprint review Monday or Tuesday. The biggest thing that's going to be here, which is also in the cumulative that just got released, is support for Windows Session 0. And make sure you read the letter that comes with that. There's also a copy of it on the support site. There's certain things that we can support there, certain things that we can't guarantee stability on because of Microsoft's restrictions, and also kind of a caution that Microsoft does plan to remove that functionality in the future. They haven't said when exactly yet, but they are planning to move away from it. And so we need to work on an alternative way to implement jobs on Windows systems in certain scenarios so that we can continue to run those jobs in a different way once that does get removed. A big thing people have been waiting for is Windows 2012 support. Apologize for the delay on this. We had to make code changes to Windows 2012. We had to implement a new installer. We also had to make some code changes in the software itself. So it wasn't a simple certification and just say that we support it. We had to do some work there. We're also updating the JRE that's included with the agent to the most current version on all the platforms, so we can avoid all of the issues with any known security vulnerabilities and so on. And as you'll see on the next page, as we go forward to the next service pack, our plan is to upgrade the JRE to Java 7. This will still be 1.6. And there are a number of other fixes, roll-ups from the previous patch sets, new certifications, PeopleSoft 853, for example. This is all in Service Pack 2, so that's coming out in July. It will support install in place, patch in place from basically every prior version of 11.3, so it'll be very simple to install. The next big thing coming down the line is going to beta shortly. Workload Automation 11.3.6 is coming in Falcon. It's primarily focused on two things, although there's some other things as well. These two are security authentication, so support for external security products like Kerberos, especially around the command line interface. So you can implement, if you choose, security on the CLI to force people to authenticate themselves whenever they run a command. Several customers have asked for that. The other thing that's been long awaited is the single pane of glass functionality in WCC to support CA7 monitoring. Will also be in Falcon. That's going into beta shortly, like I think the next week or two. So if you're interested in either of those two things, please contact somebody at CA. We'll get you to the right person. Dan Shannon is going to be managing that, and Mark Warren will obviously be involved with it from the Odyssey's perspective. We'll be happy to hook you up with that. Even if you can't participate in the beta fully, if you're interested in getting a demonstration or maybe just playing with it a little bit and giving us your feedback, please let us know. The next agent coming out is the Informatica Powercenter agent. That's coming out in September, by the end of September. That's been delayed. I think this is one of the successful failures, I think. We put this out for beta a few months ago. Our beta customers discovered there was some gaps in the functionality that they needed the agent didn't provide. So we pulled it back. We've been adding that functionality. We're going to go back to a short beta shortly and then go out to GA in September. And we're rolling out the job types for Informatica and the different agents over the next several months as well. So that'll be available. We've also got the long-awaited update for the ZOS agent. The current ZOS agent is very old, and we're rolling out a new ZOS system agent that's based on the current version of ESP 11.4. So that's going to get a whole lot of new features and functionality, modernization, and support. So that's going to be a huge, huge step up for those folks who are using the ZOS agent. Beyond that, kind of the road ahead, we have some updates planned for D-Series for 11.3, and I think this is going to come out in the form of a service pack. Primarily here, kind of the same things that's been going on in the other products. I want to make sure they have job types for SQL Server and Informatica agents, Windows 2012 support, and update the GRE to, I think, either 7 or the latest 1.6. Not sure which there. There'll be a Service Pack 3 and 4 for the agents in November and late spring, probably like May next year. Those will continue this path towards catching up on certifications, catching up on the backlog of open issues, and rolling out a few enhancements as well. One area that we're going to be looking at is installation packaging. Another area we're going to be looking at is HA support. We'll get more details on those as we get into the planning for those. iDash is underway right now with a new release. I think it's going to be 1.3.6, but don't quote me on that. The code name for it is Katana, and its primary focus is on supporting CA7. So now you'll have the iDash equivalent of a single pane of glass between Autosys and CA7. Going forward, again, like I mentioned earlier, we'll be focusing on D-Series and ESP as well. Workload Automation Phoenix, and I'm not sure if it has a number yet. I don't know if it'll be 11.3.7 or 11.4 or something else. That's planned for next year. Its primary goals include 64-bit binaries, yay, finally, job types for the SQL and Informatica agents, and an enhanced GUI. We'll be making some additions and enhancements to WCC as we start working towards the user interface, the next version user interface. And then finally for D-Series, there'll be a new release next summer. I probably will be 11.4, but I'm not sure yet. And it has a number of things in it that are being discussed right now, but the biggest one, I think, multi-threaded event manager. That will help with performance, scalability, and if I understood correctly, with HA support as well, going way over time, so I need to hurry up here. Next generation user interface, so single pane of glass, not just for CA and Autosys, but for all 4 engines. So this will be the user interface for all 4 engines going forward once it's released. We will not be dropping any functionality compared to the user interfaces that we have today. There will be migration paths from the user interfaces that we have today, and it's going to be very intuitive and easy to use. And this is what we're going to go forward with. So we're not going to be, doing the user interface of the week with you going forward. We want to get this done, get it right, and stay with it. So we are kind of in the requirements definition phase for this, and the user experience team is getting involved heavily. So we're looking for a lot of input from you on what this needs to do, how it needs to do it. Even in terms like scalability and performance requirements. So if you have any input there, let us know. We'll hook you up with the right people with that. And we might be asking for your input and help on this as well. Centralized agent management I mentioned earlier. Again, a single web interface, and we want to manage the agents across the enterprise. So understand what you've got, what it's doing, what state it's in. Be able to shut them down, start them up, add plugins, disable plugins, those kind of things. I want to be able to deploy patches, perhaps even automatically. We need some validation on those requirements. Deploy new plugins, and then the last one is agent deployment to start with from a clean slate. So we're going to be working on those. Again, we really want your input on those. This will be for all of the engines, for all of the supported agents and plugins, not just the most current 11.3 or beyond agents. It's probably going to be deployed in stages, so we'll support like the first couple of bullets, and then the next couple of bullets, and then the last couple of bullets. And again, we'll be developing in conjunction with you. So that's pretty much what I wanted to present today. I apologize, I went over time. We'll take some questions here at the end of the webcast if you have any questions, and you can contact us directly if you have any questions or would like to participate in anything. So thanks, and I'll pass control over to Umair.
Thanks, Peter. Let me know once you have transferred.
You should have it now.
Yep, got it. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webcast. What I wanted to do was do a quick recap of CA World, particularly the workload automation track. I know I gave you guys a quick overview before CA World, so Dexter and I thought it would make sense that you guys get a quick update on what happened at CA World and what are some of the stuff that you can check out on our website. So just a quick overview. At CA World, workload automation, as compared with the last year, it has a lot more emphasis. We had a combined track for distributed and mainframe workload in alignment with our strategy. We announced our grand vision and strategy that Peter shared as well. We had a lot of pre-con education sessions on Sunday for people who came out a day early. I'll get that into a detail for that in a bit. We had 23 workload automation sessions for mainframe and distributed. We had 3 exhibition stations, and we had 3 stations at a technical campground where customers could come in, book time, and get their technical questions and problems and troubleshooting answered. And then you had the opportunity of signing up one-on-one meetings with various CA workload automation experts from engineering, from development, to product management. So again, it was a huge success. At CA World, we had one of the most highly attended sessions. Considering its workload automation, we saw a lot of interest from a lot of companies, both from customers and prospects. We had some of the most highly attended sessions. Our vision and strategy session had about 130 plus attendees. Even for the pre-con session, considering it was a Sunday, we had about closer to 50 people in each of the sessions, and it was one of the second highest sessions attended at CA World as well. So again, we saw great traction from customers, from partners, from CA team at CA World. We also had quite a few analyst meetings. They dropped by in our sessions, they interacted with customers, and they left great reviews for our vision and strategy. We also had a big user group mixer. We had about 75 people attended, so it was a casual mixer, people just introducing themselves, networking. Most of you guys probably talked to one another in a lot of local meetings and a lot of local webcasts, but it was nice to see a lot of you guys in person, and a lot of the customers got a chance to see some of the peers, talk to them, interact, network, and actually have a great time as well. So just a quick recap, we had a couple of pre-con sessions on Sunday. We had record attendance for each of them. Both of them were highly recommended by customers and highly attended as well. One of them was for Autosys, in which Mike Woods, Mark Warren, and Nick Mancheko basically shared their guidelines, and they shared best practices around how do you learn and how do you start managing the new version of Autosys. The second one was focused more on agents, in which Peter and Mike Woods and John Rooney all contributed and gave everyone a quick overview of all the agents, the technical overview, and basically the business. They presented business cases as well. So we feel that a lot of customers are not fully leveraging all the agents, so this was really beneficial for a lot of our customers, better understanding how they can maximize their investment in existing agents and how they can leverage some of the newer agents as well. So just a quick recap of the tracks. I know this is a distributed webcast, so I just took a few of the distributed sessions that were really popular. So some of these presentations are already available on CA World. I will share a link at the end of the presentation as well. Like I said, the vision and strategy was one that was really popular. We had a jam-packed session. It was great interaction from customers, and it was really heartening to see your response and your affirmation of our strategy and our vision. We shared a lot of product focus sessions. around AutoSys, around iDash, around agents. Then we had a lot of customers contributing this year as well. We had a panel discussion for comprising of Colgate, from HP, and Powell from Citigroup sharing their experiences and their future plans with the new release as well. It was a nicely attended session, really interactive, and I really enjoyed it as well. Again, we had another different kind of session this year. It was more of an interactive session. So everyone talks about workload has changed. There are a lot of trends and technologies that you guys can leverage in workload space. So it's not your grandfather's workload automation anymore. We basically started having these conversations with you guys in which we asked the customers and your peers what did they think about these technologies. Were they realistic? What were the challenges in adopting them? And so on. So we had a lot of interactive discussions there. So thank you so much for everyone that contributed to it. Like I said, then there were more technical deep dives around D-Series, around AutoSys that were really popular and really well attended as well. Then again, Peter conducted a great session around how you can better leverage those agents across the enterprise. This was really relevant for folks that didn't have a chance to attend the pre-con session, so this was more use case based and gave a quick overview of our agents and their functionality as well. Again, we had an opportunity for 3 more customers and partners to present. So we had Powell representing from the Wall Street user group, we had Louis Vanderberg representing from the Northwest user group, and we had extra technology folks representing the UK user group. So they all shared the lessons learned in organizing these meetups. Plus, they picked up a couple of presentations each that they really liked that have been presented in the user groups in the past. So again, I wanted to thank all these customers that made CA World such a huge success and all their contribution and all the effort that they put in making these presentations and presenting as well. So like I said, so Parag did another great session on the future of UI. I know Peter just briefly mentioned that. So this was, again, an interactive session where we were asking the customers, you guys, your peers, that what do you think how the future of user experience should look like, right? So again, we got some great feedback. I know it's a continued process, and Parag would be doing that in the future as well. Then we had a couple of great partner sessions. We had Extra Technologies from the UK share a real case study on how they helped the financial services company reduce their operating costs by up to 30%. So it's great to hear about all the technical stuff, but it was very nice and refreshing seeing a real life use case as well. And then Robert Mark Technology, another one of our premier partners, shared how you can get the most out of the new job types. So like I said before, there's so many new functionality in the new release of AutoSys, so many new job types. So this was a great session for customers who wanted to learn how they can better exploit these newer functionalities. So I guess to sum it up, so we have some great content for you guys. So if you miss CA World, or if you want, not all the sessions are uploaded, but some of the presentations are already uploaded on the CA World site. You can probably download this this slide deck and just click on these links to get these presentations. We also had a great writer by an analyst who gave a great summary of what he saw at CA World, both on our vision and strategy and our product line. So you guys should definitely read that as well. So both the links are given at the end of the presentation that you can click and download. With that, thank you so much for your time. And at the end of the presentation, I'll be available for any Q&A or any particular questions you have around any sessions or around CA World in general. With that, I will transfer it to Asim.
Hi, thanks, Umair, sorry. Just waiting for the presentation.
So you should have it shortly.
Great, just got it. All right, so thanks everyone for taking the time to listen to my little speech here. So I'm part of Fiserv. We have a pretty large implementation of AutoSys. So what I wanted to bring up was, a lot of people have deployed AutoSys and, they're engaging in AutoSys, but, how do you support that environment? How do you support, multiple business units or multiple clients or multiple different environments at the same time. So hence the title that I presented, which is the operational support in a dynamic environment. So I want to just go over the agenda of the things I wanted to kind of speak over. So the background of what the problem was, the environment and the challenges that are associated with it, the problem statement itself, things to consider, things to start before you start, solution, outcomes, possible future enhancements, and comments. So I'll just go into the background. So I work for Fiserv, which is founded in 1984. It's headquartered in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Has 158 locations worldwide, roughly 20,000 employees, and 4.4 billion in revenue in the year previous. So we're a leading provider of information management and electronic commerce systems and financial services, providing integrated technology and services that create value and results for our clients. So we deliver technology solutions in 5 different areas of competence: payment solutions, processing services, risk compliance, and channel management, and insights and optimization. So you can imagine that we're kind of doing a lot of different things in what we're doing with Autosys, and Autosys has become the de facto scheduler for the whole enterprise. So, we wanted to see how we can, improve our connectivity with all these channels that we're kind of supporting. So, our operators eventually start having this problem where they don't know which jobs to represent what, or what are really important. So, we started kind of walking down through that path. So our environments are, probably not much different from your own, which is, we have a beta environment, it was running R11, and we're planning to upgrade, and we have upgraded too. We have 2 cert environments that we, are running 4.5.1, and we're in the midst of, upgrading as well. And then we have 3 different prod environments that are all running 4.5.1, totaling number of jobs. We have 171 unique calendars that we have to manage every year at this point. Our challenge is obviously 4.5.1 has no WCC, no view into jobs for the business units. Too many jobs for JobScape, too much overhead to run for many users. On average, we have 45 job changes a day that we manage. Our problem statement, after several deployments into a few business units, Autosys is a scheduling tool of the organization. This means that providing our business units and batch operations with tools to better manage the support and processing for the batch, kind of becomes our challenge. So the problem statement better stated is, how do you convey job information in a concise format? How do you empower the business units to gain a better understanding of their solution, and how to give tools to the batch operations to support the processing? So we considered a few things. Each business unit has a different escalation need. So some people like email, some people like their ticketing system, some people like to be called at 3 in the morning when something breaks. Operational teams have varying levels of experience. So we have as with any operational team, we have a lot of different varying levels of expertise. So we wanted to keep sure we can keep it to the, I guess, most common denominator as to how much level of expertise we expect our operators to have. Some BUs consider certification as important, whereas others do not. So, we will launch into the certification region, and some business units watch it as diligently as they would a production environment, and others are not really that important. So we have to consider this when we're talking about a swath of different organizations. In terms of automation team, we only have 3 associates at this point, which 2 associates are on call 24/7. So, all these environmental things to consider in terms of problem statement, it becomes kind of challenging or daunting to kind of manage 100,000 jobs with those resourcing constraints. So things to consider before you start, standards. Job names have to be standardized, variables should be standardized, and calendar should be standardized. So this way, it's easy to know what the jobs do, what the variables are for, and what the calendars are, just by the name. You just have to, all you need to do is be told the name, and you're like, oh, this is for, Dexter's job, and we want to make sure that we get this processing quickly done. Knowledge management system, so obviously you need some place to hold or store, manage your information and documentation. So now, interesting thing is that our end users don't necessarily have the same access to the management system, and we can kind of get into that in a little bit, but this is where our operators and at least my staff will employ the knowledge management system so that everything's in one place. And obviously knowledge management has its own version control, has its own supporting features that are associated with it. In terms of communications, we definitely encourage a peer review process for changes and a turnover presentation. So we'll bring in the business unit, the operations team, and any of the teams in between to and present what we call our processing document to them to understand and to basically buy into what our process is. So our solution was basically create a processing document. So we created a template and we kept it in Microsoft Excel. Again, the reason we did that is because it's, as you see, universal type. Pretty much everyone has a MS Excel as part of the business world, and allows for tabs and sections. It's searchable and flexible. We wanted to keep it simple. We don't want to have too many documents per processes. So we kept one document per business unit containing all the jobs related to their processing. And then what we insisted on, or what we put in as our standard, is that every time we update a document, we have to put a new. We must update every time we update a job. We want to update the deployment document as well to make sure that everything's consistent. So that was really important for us. The processing document is grouped in components into these several components: the group contact, the Autosys variables, machines, categories, and escalations. Obviously, your environment might be a little different, but this is how we kind of frame out what our jobs look like, and that's how we kind of and each of these components are actually tabs in this document that we're talking about in the Excel spreadsheet. So just going down the tabs, we had like the group contacts contains groups involved in the effort and contact information methods. So contacts must be a group, not individuals, and with 24/7 support. So like here's an example where I have the remedy ID up top. These are escalation groups and methods. So we have our operational engineers who we call through alarm point. We have data transmissions who we call through alarm point as well. But we also have a telephone number that we want to call, which is spelled wrong, sorry. But we can call a functional BU functional user who happens to be on staff 24/7. And then, or email is also an option. I mean, technically you can put almost any mechanism that you have. Again, the nice thing about Excel is that it's flexible, and this is an open template. You don't have to necessarily be conformed to some sort of folders or files or file types. So the Autosys variables was, basically when we deploy, at least in our environment, when we deploy, we actually heavily use Autosys variables quite frequently to basically, allow us to switch between systems. So like if you notice, we have the same variables between, our BTAT lower region and our prod region. This way, when we, promote, we don't have to, change a lot of, little tweaks or, oh, I forgot to change this variable, so et cetera. So, but the nice thing is we keep, they can be different between environments, useful if after deployment beta region is not needed, and we need to reinstate it. So, like we said before, our clients, may not be interested in the in the beta region anymore, and they want us to remove everything. But then they come back 6 months later and go, oh, we have this new client implementation that we need to do. We need to reinstate the jobs. Now, instead of like reinventing the wheel or even working backwards from production, we have this in the document, and we can kind of go back and kind of just keep, and just reinstate those variables and kind of redeploy appropriately. So that's kind of the background behind that, at least. Then we have the machines. So we also employ virtual machines for for failover for our clients, etc. So we'll have like one BTAP machine or two CERT machines or etc. And you just want to know what those machines are, because I mean, in a distributed environment with we have roughly 50,000, or sorry, probably 10,000 servers that we have employed in Autosys at this point. We won't know which servers anyone's really talking about. And again, this KMS document, the effective knowledge management, is actually accessible by our operators, by ourselves. And so when someone calls me at 3 in the morning and says, my XYZ job is not working, I can quickly pull up the documentation for that job and isolate what machine it might be, or et cetera. So this obviously contains real machines defined and declared virtual machines as well. The next tab is the job categories. So this contains job categories. So if you're doing like pull files or processing files or generate requests, etc., it has suggested escalations. It has some notes as to what we think the job is doing, or what we understand the job is doing with the business unit. And then it gives a real rationale as to why we think that those approaches should be taken to contact, or that why we should order this type of contact or rationale. And it just helps for us as the implementers to know what kind of jobs we're actually creating. It gives us a sense of who owns, or who's a responsible party for the jobs. Because often as schedulers, you're just scheduling jobs. You're not really concerned about what's in there per se. You just need to know who to contact, who owns the script, and how to reach out to them. In some cases, you do know. You do know enough to help support them as well. So again, it's just a matter of conveying that information in a concise and organized place. The next tab is actually the job escalation. So this contains all the job names, all the escalations, and all job descriptions that are associated with the job. It has a quick reference with the escalation and job description as well. So you can see the job names. These are jobs that we'll typically have, the escalation paths, and they're kind of highlighted. I enumerated the groups by so 1 equals on-call DA, which is my team. 2 might be undefined, or you can have a third party. 3 becomes the RIM, the operation engineering. 4 becomes our transmissions team. So the description, these are actually the descriptions from our jobs, but we actually, when we put them in the Autosys side, we actually put the KMS ID associated to each job. So now this way, now our operators, when they see a red light alarm or some sort of ticket that's created, they can quickly go to the job, realize that there's a document associated to it, and they can jump over to analyze what steps they can possibly take. So the outcome, the BU now has job names that are mapped to scheduling, because as we mentioned earlier, we're on 451. When we don't want the business unit necessarily jumping onto the Autosys JobScape windows, we haven't really employed WCC. So now they have job names that they can map to their own functions. Operators have a quick reference and escalation, possibly to tier 1, and allow for tier 1 troubleshooting. The automation team has documentation for jobs for a BU in one place, including variables and machines. And the document is owned by the operational team for refinement. So if our operators kind of, they feel that they want to, enhance the job flow, we kind of empower them to do that. If there's cases where, they feel that the document can be enhanced, maybe they don't want to call the business unit anymore. They have enough documentation to support the process themselves. They can certainly go ahead and do that. The next, the idea of future enhancements. We talked about attaching a flow diagram. We've actually recently started attaching release notes. So as we improve or enhance the document, we want to track what we did, and we'll just add another tab that'll say release notes, or we'll have another tab that says flow diagram. Again, this gets the users off my system in the sense that they're not bogging down the system like with JobScape or et cetera. So that's really what we kind of came up with. I kind of now I can kind of open up the floor to questions. And thanks for your time.
Victoria, could you open up for questions, please?
Certainly. At this time, if you would like to ask a question, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. Again, you may press star 1 to ask a question.
Asim, this is Mike O'Neill. What are your plans to get off your current version of AutoSys and go to the latest and greatest?
Yeah, we're in transition. We've actually stood up a cert region, and we have a production region all set up. We're just in the midst of the teething pains of migrating all those jobs you saw, and making sure they're all set up and straightened out before we get over there. We don't want to bring over garbage and can perpetuate a system that we don't necessarily want to maintain. But I think we'll still keep up with this document just because I think it's easier for, again, the universality of the document makes it easier. There's no learning curve of necessarily employing R11 or as a WCC component to it. We'll certainly give their operators a level of insight into R11, but I think we want to keep keep all the people at bay, if you will, and kind of limit how much exposure we give to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
So I assume there's no questions. It sounds like.
Oh, okay.
There are currently no phone questions.
Okay, thanks, Asim. That was really great. We could, if anybody has any more questions about this presentation, we're going to open it up again at the very end, and you can ask then if you think of something. But at this time, we'd like to thank Asim and then turn it over to Mike O'Neill.
Hi, this is Mike O'Neill. I've been with Wells Fargo now for about 6 years, and I'm part of the AutoSys engineering group. I was also one of the original 3 SCs at the AutoSys lab in Boulder since 1995. Today, the topic, there's 2 slides. There's 2 presentations out on the website. One has more screenshots, and it's much larger, and one doesn't have the screenshot video, and it's much smaller, but they both have the same content. So as you can see my screen, I'm going to talk about the automated client deployment of AutoSys and how we've done that at Wells. Just a little background on Wells. It's a big company. Market capitalization is currently $230 billion. Revenue of $86 billion in 2012. We're continuing to grow, and we have over 270,000 employees. So it's a big company. We have big company problems, concerns, bureaucracy, which plays into how we distribute AutoSys. Just some points on AutoSys and how it fits into our business. We centrally manage AutoSys, so we have AutoSys to centrally schedule different business lines. We don't break out instances by business lines. We have central instances. On version 11 alone, we have over 3,500 agents deployed and over 11 million jobs a month. The job count has continued to grow, and so whenever we print these slides, it's soon out of date. So we're looking for something. How do we scale this? How do we continue to deploy agents in an automated fashion? Just to give you some perspective, we merged 2 banks, Wells and Wachovia, in 2006, 7. So it turned out that both banks were currently using AutoSys, And so as we merged, we were left with both 4.0 AutoSys and 4.5.1 AutoSys. We've migrated the 4.0 to R11, and we're currently in the midst of migrating 4.5.1 to 11.3. And our basic tenet or basic strategy would be to, have 2 versions going. So we have 11.0 and 11.3. If we decide to go to 11.5, we would migrate 11.0 to 11.5 and then have 11.3. So kind of leapfrog in that fashion. Just to kind of high level where the agents fit in our environment, you can see the colors denote what we own as the AutoSys engineering group and what other parts of the bank own. So we own the servers, WCC, JAWS, EEM, AutoSys server. We're dependent as part of the chain on a lot of different business groups that own different tools, especially for operations. And here in green, you see the agents. Over 3,500 agents in R11 aren't owned by us. We don't even necessarily have access to the machines. So we need a way to deploy these agents or give them a package to deploy the agents to people who don't have any AutoSys knowledge or any care to know that knowledge. They just want to get the agents set up on those machines. So the person deploying the agents isn't the person in the AutoSys group. This speaks to the scale. We currently support 4.5.1, 11.0, 11.3 in production. 11.0, 3,800 clients deployed with 100 additional per month. And we know there's 100 additional per month because every time a client is deployed, we have it report back to the server that it's been installed. So at the time it's installed, in the case of 11.0, it just does a send event comment back to the server to which we scrape and generate a report of what's being deployed where. It helps us as opposed to a 4.5.1 environment where we had more control over the installs. In this way, we're able to determine what version of AutoSys, what operating system was deployed. And we've more fine-tuned that with the 11.3 deployment. To get more information, we actually define the machine from the agent side. And in the description field, we load that up with everything we would want to know about that agent. Who installed it, when it was installed, what operating system, what version of client, what version of agent. Again, speaking of the big company, we're a big company. Some of the challenges we've addressed is not owning the clients. So the job queue, we have a rolling pool of SAs who actually do the installs, and they may be encountering AutoSys the first time today and then installing another product tomorrow. So because of our lead times in generating requests for these installs and funding, and we have to make sure licenses are paid for, there's often a month to 2 month lead time before an agent installed. So we don't have the leeway or luxury at the time the agent is installed. If there's a problem with the install, to debug what happened. So we want the package to be as generic and bulletproof as possible. Because if we have to rework an agent, it goes back in a queue because we're installing across all time zones, offshore. By the time it gets back to us, an agent failed, that SA could be off. It could be on to the next install. So, those 3 challenges, the rotating pool of SAs, siloing the access, making sure our licenses are paid for before we deploy an agent, and the actual install are what we're addressing. In addition to this, since we support 3 versions of AutoSys, we have shared resources out there. So we have a client machine that could very easily, and we have many like this, have 11.3, 11.0, and 4.5.1 on the same machine. We have space issues, permissions. We have audit compliance where we can't have world-readable directories or world-writable directories, and the AutoSys client 11.0 does require this to have world-writable directories, so we have to make sure our directories aren't getting changed by bots out there to get rid of that world-writable, because that breaks our agents. So we have to have that in our security plan for that. I'm sure some of you on the call have encountered this. So what I've realized in doing this, these agents, you know, again, anyone on the call could spend a day with the manual, and probably has, and get these agents installed. It's not technically difficult to install the agents when you have the access, when you have just a little bit of AutoSys knowledge. The problem we face is the institutional. We have to get the funding, we have to get the change control, we have to get the work order. The install itself is the easiest, quickest part of the whole chain. It's just minutes. But if there's a problem in the install, we have to go all the way back to change control, and we're delayed, you know, weeks or longer. So in the timeline, we're really going to make it as easy as possible to do that install. So what we've come up with is basically one install to rule them all. So that means it's a generic. There's no options to pick, because chances are the person doing the install isn't going to know, is it dev, is it prod, is it going to change next month? Do they need the client? Do they need an agent? So I think we're a little unique in that we put an agent and client everywhere, and for all the instances that we have for that version. So about 6 instances for 11.0, 6 instances for 11.3. Same everywhere, no options. And we control everything on the top end. So we have of course, the vendor provides the silent installs options to do this on Unix and Windows. But there's a lot of holes in it, and it's not customized for us in terms of what instances do we have, what do we want the folders named, you know, what are the space requirements, what's the UID of the AutoSys user that we want to put in place. So we have one install, or what I call the easy install, and then we control everything on the top end via our EEM rules. So all installs get exactly the same. And then another thing that's missing in the standard install, they report back to the scheduler when they're complete. So 11.0, it sends a comment back to the scheduler, and 11.3, it defines the machine. Because we deploy the client everywhere, we have the option to use that client to jill in the machine definition on the client side, and then to send comments from the client side. So that's really helped us get a handle on what's out there. And it's consistent, and if I could say dummy-proof in a lot of ways. In addition to that, we're leveraging HPSA, the HP Service Activator, for service provisioning. So this is a wrapper around the AutoSys installer that I wrote as a script. That's a wrapper around the vendor-provided silent installs. As you can see in this screenshot, we're deploying to 4 machines via HPSA. And from the screenshot, you can see that 2 of these have succeeded, and one of the machines perhaps didn't meet the prerequisites of drive space or free drive or whatever the issue was. This looks like a Windows machine. So immediately it says will not install. So you don't get to the point where you're half installed and you have to untangle it and debug what happened the next day. We set up the problems that we've seen before into the code, and we get a report of what hasn't been installed. So right now we're probably at about 5% problem installs overall. But this script has been used to deploy all the 11.0 agents, which is getting close to 4,000 agents now. Here's actually the guts of it. This is, you know, the technical, how we organize this package, which we deploy as a tar file or a zip file, or through HVSA. What's in green is what our group wrote, the AutoSys engineering group. So we have the wrapper, the glue, the AS install, which has several functions in it. You don't want one big program. You want functions where you can throw out code that doesn't work. So we have the response directory, which is custom folders. When we deploy to Windows, we send a link to our internal website for support issues. But the key thing about this package is we don't change anything the vendor's doing. So we take exactly the media DVD that's deployed to us, that's given to us, for example, 11.3 SP1. That whole CD-ROM goes into the folder. And then when we get patches, maintenance 0, cumulative 1 through 3, jobs running twice patch, those go right into the patch directory, unchanged. So nothing in the blue has changed at all. It's just formatted, and then the AS install program will pull those in. So when we get a new patch, we just drop it in the patch directory, and the AS install will cycle through the patches. That way, if there's any issue with the install package, we take out the green part and just run it directly, and we can show the vendor that it's their issue and not something that we've rewritten. Of course, you know, the problem with you know, making your own installer is you've got to have your own QA process, which we do. We deploy to virtual machines, and we have an internal group that uses this to confirm that they're working to our functionality standards, which is agents and clients and talking to all instances. In terms of what we're doing, we're currently in prod on 11.11.3. We're currently actually going to incremental 2 SP5. And we're looking at some of the other features, functionalities that's coming out of the AutoSys group. I use AutoSys and workload automation interchangeably. Okay, now I want to actually show you the real guts of the system. Actually run through an install. We used to say AutoSys has ported every overhead projector in the world, every version. But this is an actual demo that I recorded earlier. So in terms of the Unix install, they're completely mixed with Windows. We've made some customations. We've done some workarounds for some bugs that we've encountered now, but it doesn't hurt to set a variable twice. We had problems with Linux boot level where it wouldn't come up because it was too low of a start level. We had a problem where EW shared variable was in the side agent but not the cache comp, so we couldn't run auto rep commands or auto flags commands or things that required that variable from the client as a job. So we had to add that cache comp variable. And since we're going to use 11.3 to absorb 451, we've set it up through the agent parm.txt to mimic 451 behavior as best we can. We've also, you know, since we're not necessarily administrators on these boxes, you know, files that don't need to be owned by root aren't owned by root. We change them to AutoSys. All right, so here I'm logging into the system, and I'm going to do an install on the Unix side. I'm in the image directory. I run the AS install with the -S. This is what HPSA would have a wrapper around. And you can see step 1, it's just running the vendor provided WA_setup from that media directory. And then we have a silent install, a response file, and then we log it. So this lays down the base product, which is going to be unpatched, and it's only going to have one instance. So through the miracle of, let me speed this up a little. Checking the version in the other window, it's currently at 2.4.5. Okay, now the patching happens. So on top of the base agent, we patch it. Let me close that window. And then another unique thing we do, we add a second agent. So we have 2 agents per machine with the thought that if one agent goes down, we have that redundancy. We could use one agent to start another agent. We could use one agent to get information about another agent through blobs. We adjust the init levels, and then based on this host name, config 249.2495, we define the agent's machines twice. And here I'm going to do an auto rep on those machines that were just defined by this script. And it looks like I have to set my environment. I'm in bash shell. So you can see that the description field indicates what I did. It was installed by 8625.834 on this date, Linux. Here we have the Autosys client version. We can get the side agent version. We could run that as a job to return that to a blob. And then the other thing we do, we don't define it as hostname.domain. We do this special suffix install, and with an EEM, we have a rule that says you can't run to any job that has install on it, has a suffix. You can only run to jobs that are defined with a .com or something other than install. And in this way, we define the machine, we test it, we know that it was installed, but it's not able to run any jobs, so we still maintain that control at the top end. You can see Jill is working. Auto flags. Let me check the side agent version. We're currently build 420. We modify the agent parm.txt file as well to make it mimic 451. All right, let me close out of here. That's Unix, and on the Windows side, it's very similar in the process, the steps we do. So within that overarching script, we break it down into steps. Pre-check, check for space, check for admin rights. Install the base agent, install a second agent. So we have a redundant agent. We patch both agents. We add all the additional clients, UAT, prod, dev. And then we clean it up. We delete some files we don't want them to have, like chase, and, eventing, and things like that. And then we add our instance-specific profile, so all of our agents can run auto-rep to any of the instances if they're given that access at the top end through EEM. And what differentiates this from what is delivered from the vendor, we create the test machines with Jill and test it at the end of the install. Because again, this install is happening at random intervals, and we don't know when it's going to happen. We can't go and confirm. We may not be able to confirm it manually for a week later. In that time, we see that it's failed. There's no way to communicate back that it was failed. So this way, we can get an exception list of any clients that were not installed correctly. And if they stop working, we know that they were installed at one time, and we could have them working at one time. Let me go through a Windows install. I've got a Windows machine up here. Let me go to the, I've unzipped it. You can see I've got the native DVDs, the G6E DVD, the 102E DVD. I've got response files already generated. So I run as administrator. I'm installing to the D drive in this instance. Again, you see we're just running the vendor-provided silent install. We didn't rewrite that or attempt to rewrite that. It runs through this silent install. Let me speed this up again. And it takes about 5 minutes. It's not the quickest thing using the vendor-provided install. We could have just unzipped it into place, but since we support multiple versions, we would have taken the risk of overwriting 11.0 or 11.3 overwriting 11.0 or 11.0 overwriting 11.3. So instead of just untarring, unzipping on top of it, we've gone with the targeted scripting approach. So here we install the second agent. It's at build 262, so it's going to patch with maint 0, which is SP1. I'm not sure why it's not called SP1, but it's called maint 0. And it's going to go through that iteration where it patches the maint 0, whatever cumulative is in that directory. I believe in this case it's cumulative 2. And then it's going to patch the second agent. Of course, in your environment, you may only have one agent, so you'll only go through one iteration. Now we had the additional instances. Again, I'm using the vendor-provided way to do that. They didn't provide a way to add a second agent. I had to do that directly from the second DVD. But here we're adding the additional clients. So the reason we just didn't put that directly in the registry ourselves is that we want to be able to install to any drive. So the option is to what drive you want to install it, the G drive, the D drive. So we didn't want to get tied to a particular drive. So we left it open and use the vendor installer. The additional instances are being deployed. We're going to modify the Start Program menu to insert a link to our, if you remember from the previous slide, we have a website, autosys.wellsfargo.com, internal to us, which describes our policies and procedures for getting the additional access they would require to maintain their jobs. And we base it based on application ID. The Windows install, this will wrap up both of the installs for the demo, and I'm getting close to the end of the presentation here. We'll open it up for questions shortly. Create the profiles. We modify agent.text, and then we're going to create both virtual machines, the real machines. We have to define the machine before we can auto-ping it. So we define it, and then we auto-ping it, and then we know the version. And I can go ahead and see that it's installed. I can bring up a command prompt. I can auto-rep, check the versions. I can check the version of the SIBE agent. See where I build 420, maintenance level 2, service stack 1. I can confirm that both the services are running now. You see we've got 2 agents running, both started, both automatic. And that's the Windows install. So we're really trying to get out of the business of, so it really affects us if we have many patches to apply. If patches come fast and furious, there's no way we can deploy those to 4,000 agents. So we really want to know what's going to affect us. You know, why is it necessary to apply this? Is it going to affect the client? Is it going to affect the agent? How do we use that? So that's the big picture view of how we deploy agents at Wells Fargo. At this time, I'd like to open it up to any questions from the group.
As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, press star 1 on your telephone keypad.
This is Dexter. I've seen a couple of questions entered in asking for a copy of the scripts that Mike uses to deploy the agents. I can tell you also as a Wells Fargo employee that would not be possible to supply that.
Yeah, I can't supply the code. But I can tell you I'm using what the vendor provides to create the client and agent at the same time. That's set up and recorded, and it gets you mostly there. And if you wanted just to deploy the agent, there's a way to do that as well, but it puts the incorrect crypt key in, so you have to modify the crypt key post if you use the Cybermation version of the install. But it's several iterations to get it the way we want, to get the folders the way we want.
You do have a phone question from the line of Bendu Zerwinski.
Hello. Could you re-explain what you meant by why you need 2 agents on a machine?
We don't need 2 agents on a machine. We just did it, you know, as a way, a carryover from the way we behaved in 451, where we would segment the agents. You know, in 451, you'd have at unitd.conf, you would have an auto_remote prod on a certain port number and an auto remote dev on a certain port number. So we carried that into 11, where we have 2 agents, what we call autosysdev and autosysprod. And it's a way for us to manage what we're going to. I know there's other ways to manage that, but we also thought with the dual agents that we would have some redundancy where one could maintain the other, where one could, you know, potentially give us more options in the future, where if one agent was down, the other agent could possibly start it, could, you know, FTP files back and forth. So it was more we did it because we could, and it gives us some redundancy on the agent side. Based on our experiences in 11.0, we had a lot of problems with agents stopping responding in 11.0, so we wanted to just be double sure in 11.3.
I do have another question. Do you have any with you installing all the instances on one host? Do you not have an issue with separating production from non-prod, and how do you go about doing that?
Well, we do install all the instances on the one host, but then we control it through EEM. So even though, you know, prod may be installed on the client, if they try and run a command, like for example autorep, it'll say you do not have access because we've tied in that Active Directory ID into the EEM. So everything is done by the application ID of the job. So for example, if they try and jill in a job, it would say that application ID is required, and if they specify one that isn't authorized for them to define, which is no one can define in prod except our scheduling team, they get a security error. So we've controlled it through the top end. You know, and we also had some issues where, you know, an agent would get deployed and it just had dev on it, And they said, well, we want to use it as dev now, but you know, it's pre-prod. It's going to be prod later. So we can control that, and we don't have to go through that deployment process again. We just switch it at the top end.
And there are currently no further phone questions.
Okay, well, Dexter, shall I turn that over to you?
Sure, I'll wrap things up. Thanks everyone, and we'll chat with you on October the 1st. That'll be our next webcast. So thanks everybody. If you have a chance, we do have a poll to rate the topics that were covered today. If you could take that, we'd appreciate it. Thanks everybody, and goodbye.
Thank you for your participation in today's conference. This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect.